All right, so about duality and mirror images, let's look at these two clock faces. The image off to the left is the exact mirror opposite of the one on the right. The analog clock on the left reads 10:16. Off to the right, you see the clock reads 1:44. These numbers go together. Now, 144 is a very important number for many reasons. It's a big number in the Bible. It's a Fibonacci number. Among other things, 144 is a big time number. So this is a rough draft, but later on we can add many more important reasons why 144 is a big number. But let's look at the time on the clock. Let's say it's 1:44 p.m. That would be 13 hours and 44 minutes into the day. That translates to a total of 824 minutes. 824 is a number we've associated with Pluto because Pluto was ripped of his planetary status on August 24th, 8/24. And written another way, it could be 24/8. Pluto has that orbital period that's roughly 248 years. And as we talked about, from the birth of this nation, America, the United States of America, from 1776 going forward, 248 years. Well, that brings us to the year 2024. On a clock, 2024, like 20 hours and 24 minutes, is actually 8:24 p.m. So we'll talk more about Pluto in a bit. Let's just get back to this 8:24. Apologies for any noise you hear in the background. This is kind of a rough draft anyways. So just repeating that 824 minutes into the day is 1:44 p.m. And as I said, 144 is important at time, but it's also important to times, like 12 times 12. And it's also the 12th Fibonacci number. So we're going to get into phi, and we're going to get into how this connects with the number 218. And I'd say that's an important number to Pluto. So we already talked about Pluto's demotion on 8/24. Now we're talking about its discovery on February 18th. The year is going to be important too. But for now, let's look at the 218. And remember the NASA Mars rover Perseverance. It landed on February 18th. So we have Pluto, is ruler of the underworld, so it connects with death. And we know how it connects with Oppenheimer many ways. And plutonium. And there's been a bunch of examples so far where 218 shows up in a significant manner. A few shows. Netflix seems to like this number. Remember Squid Game had the 218, and Cobra Kai had a bit of an appearance, but also Jupiter's Legacy, which is another planet, Jupiter. On the Netflix show Jupiter's Legacy, that clock was shown a handful of times. The clock was cracked and it stopped at the time 218, reminding me of the 218 alert that happened at first back under Trump. And then again last year. And it was 2:18 both times, 2:18 White House time. Pardon the syncretism here, but 2:18 connects with Jesus as well. Some people who have seen the show Jupiter's Legacy say it's a bit of a ripoff of DC Comics, talking about Superman and the Justice League, and it's Jupiter's legacy. Well, Jupiter is connected with Zeus, and think about Hey Zeus. Famous comic book nerd Kevin Smith put it perfectly when he said Superman is pop culture Jesus. And I'm sure we can draw some connections with Jesus and Hades. Different Bible translations use different words, obviously, but if you look up the Apostles' Creed, in certain versions of the Apostles' Creed, talking about Jesus descended into Hades or descended into hell. Remember, Squid Game had that episode 2, I believe it was. It was called Hell, but one of the big numbers in that show was 2:18. And again, I've said this before. Squid Game was a veneration of Pluto, among other planets. A good example, I believe it was the end of the first Squid Game episode where they had the song Fly Me to the Moon. You know, the lyrics are Fly me to the moon, let me play amongst the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Remember, we have the Jupiter's Legacy, the Mars rover that landed on the anniversary of discovery of Pluto. The Hebrew word for moon sums to 218. And of course, 21 and 8 have a big connection with these two great American total solar eclipses, which I've said before are kind of like bookends for America's Pluto return. But Christ connects with 218. 218 connects with the Antichrist as well. First mention of Antichrist is located in the first epistle of John 2:18. And the Transfiguration is a feast day typically celebrated on the 218th day of the year. Remember, 218 connects with Pluto, February 18th. Also connected with death. And Jesus, well, after the sacrifice, so to speak, crucifixion, his death is basically celebrated. And this connection with Jesus and Hades, some Bible translations say Sheol or hell. But there's a connection there. Like I said, look up some translations of the Apostles' Creed. He descended to the dead, and on the third day he rose again from the dead. Some translations say he descended to hell or Hades. Certain translations of the book of Revelation, he says, I have the keys of death and Hades. He has the keys to death and Hades. Pluto has a set of keys to death and Hades, right? It's been said that Jesus is the Christ, and Christ is not a surname, it's not a last name, it's a title, the Christ. Roughly translated, it's the anointed one, the Messiah, God's chosen, the Christ. If we use a capital T and a capital C, the Christ equals 218 with one of the capital letter ciphers. 218 also connects with the Christ, in my mind, if you use Strong's Concordance. If you search out the number 218 in Strong's Concordance, Strong's Greek Concordance 218, well, it has something to do with anointing, like I anoint, with oil, for instance. If you look up the usage, it says I anoint, festively, in homage, medicinally, or in anointing the dead. So I may be going off track here. I want to bring it back. But remember, talking about 218, and it connects with 1016, which I began this video talking about the time 1016. Lambda did some really good work connecting 1016 with 218. And there's also some obvious 9/11 connections as well, but let's just try to keep focused here. So I'll leave a bunch of links connecting 218 with other numbers like 1016 and whatnot to sift through. But remember I talked about the show Jupiter's Legacy and how it had connections with Superman. Well, there's a Superman show, pre-Superman, Clark Kent, called Smallville. And if you look up the official trailer on the DC YouTube page, it boasts that it has all 218 episodes. And the show premiered on October 16th, same year that 9/11 happened. Lambda made a really good point about the first 218 digits of phi and how they sum to 1016. Now, if you do the 1.618, yada, 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 you can get the 218. Or if you omit the 1 point, anything after the decimal, 218 digits as well, because that last digit is 1. That first digit would be 1 point. So anyway, 218 digits of phi sum to 1016. Phi is very much related with the Fibonacci sequence. So think about 218, 21, and 8. 21 is the 8th Fibonacci. 8 is the 6th Fibonacci. 8/6 is usually the 218th day of the year. I guess you could say another connection would be the Disney connection. So 1016 is the sum of the first 218 digits of phi. 1016 was when the Walt Disney Company was founded, October 16th. And remember, Pluto, the planet, was discovered in the year 1930, and it just so happens that's when the Disney dog, Pluto, was introduced to the public. Same year as the planet Pluto. So I gotta speed through this. 1016 minutes into the day looks like 4:56 p.m., which is a number connected with Squid Game. 4:56 and 218, the buddies there, frenemies. If we take the amount of minutes in the day, the total amount of minutes, 1440, and you subtract 1016, you get the number 424. Trump. That's an important number to Donald Trump. 424. I'll leave links. When he touched the wall at 424 local time in Jerusalem, the amount of time left in the day, 456 minutes. 424 on a clock, 424 minutes into the day is 7:04. And think about the sum of the magic square here. 704, like America. Independence Day, 7:04.